Okay, shalom ubracha. So this is the first time we're doing this. I think also in Breslov history, this has never been done. What we're going to do is we're going to be using Reb Noson's letters, but we're going to explain how we're using these letters. And before we explain how, I think a big introduction to Breslov until we get to what we're going to do today is needed. Okay. Uh, Breslov and Rabbi Nachman is very big. It's huge. It's vast. There's so much things and ideas and concepts and devotions involved. There's so many things. It's unbelievable. We're gonna focus on a transition from Rabbi Nachman's main book. Rabbi Nachman wrote a few books. Besides the books in the Breslov movement, there's the Hasidim, there's Rabbi Nachman's Kever, there's the Nigunim, there's the people, there's the stories. Again, there's so much. We're going to focus now, first of all, on Rabbi Nachman's main book. Rabbi Nachman wrote a book called Likutey Moharan. Moharan is Moreno Harav Rabbi Nachman, okay? So this book touches upon everything in life. It's crazy. It's a three-dimensional book that you can learn a lesson, and that's it. 5 years later, you go back to the same lesson. You feel like you never touched it before. It's like a totally new thing. It's always changing, and it works with you. In other words, you're reading something, and it's connected to what you're going through right now in life. It's a bit scary, but it's amazing because it's at least it's a live wire to connect to Hashem, and you feel there's guidance here, and there's meaning, and there's direction, and there's hope. Okay, so this is Rabbi Nachman's main book, Likutey Moharan. Rabbi Nachman, he lived until the age of 38. He passed away in the year 1810. So he was born what year? 1772, am I right? 80 to 90, 90 to 10, yeah. So he was born 1772, which is what also in history of the world? The American Revolution or something? Something with America, 1772, something happened in America. He was born in that year, Rabbi Nachman, okay? So he lived a short life, but he accomplished things which are unimaginable, that people in their lifetimes can't do. And he reached very high levels, as you can see from his writings and his teachings. And he said himself that his fire is going to burn until Mashiach comes. He said it's his wish to start something that won't end. He says normally a tzaddik comes up, he starts shining like a super shining star, a rising star, and he has students and svarim, and it's a big movement and everything. But when the tzaddik passes on, like it begins to ebb. Even if you're to leave behind a son or followers, it'll lose its taste, okay? He said about himself, I don't want that. I want to have something that's going to continue with even more momentum. He said about himself, I'm going to have students, and they're going to make students and make students and students and students. That's what's happening today. So on one hand, they call the breslov Hasidim in Yiddish the toite Hasidim, the dead Hasidim. But on the other hand, it's a live wire. You can't deny that it's on fire, and it's a movement without a physical living Rebbe. So then how is that working? Through mainly his teachings, that the followers also, they gather together, they mechazik each other, and also Rabbi Nachman's kever, which is now accessible since 1989. So all of these things together give what Rabbi Nachman said, it's thrust. It's like a prophecy. He said, my fire will burn until Mashiach comes, and it's happening. He passed away in 1810. We're already 2024, and it hasn't died down. And it's just going on, and the people connecting are sincere and honest. 90% of the people who join find a major positive change in their life since they come to Breslov. You have few who it goes downhill, and Rabbi Nachman talks about that also. He says you have some people that they get closer, and it brings out who they really are, and who they really are is people with ulterior motives, and it comes out, and then they fall. But the majority of people who sincerely and honestly discover Rabbi Nachman's teachings find major positive changes in their life. And they admit that if it wasn't for these teachings and these changes, they would have been much worse than they actually are. Chas v'shalom, right? Fine. So this is Rabbi Nachman in a nutshell. There's much more to talk about. So he wrote this major book, Likutey Moharan. He had many disciples, okay? He had, they say in Breslov, his name is Moharan. Moharan is the letters for menorah. He had like a candelabra of major Talmidim, 7 major Talmidim. Let's see if I remember them off by heart. There's Reb Noson, Rav Naftali, Rav Aharon, Rav Shmuel Isaac, Rav Yudel, Rav Yekutiel, and Rav Chaikel. These were his 7 main students. I think I mentioned them all properly, right? And there were other students, but these are the main ones. Of them, Rabbi Nachman put his emphasis on Rav Noson. Rav Noson was the youngest of all these Talmidim. These other students were accomplished Kabbalists, Talmidei Chachamim, you name it. They were big people. Rav Yekutiel, he himself was a Magid of 88 villages. He knew the Baal Shem Tov, and he was over 70, and he became a chassid, a follower of Rabbi Nachman, who was in his 20s. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? It's a Rebbe of 88 villages. He bent his head down to become a follower of Rabbi Nachman. Unbelievable. That's Rav Yekutiel, the Magid of Trovitza. Trovitza is about 20 minutes east of Uman. I was by his kever, Baruch Hashem. He was a Levi. Okay, so of them, Rav Noson was the youngest. But because, as explained in Breslov tradition, Rav Noson himself was a big Talmid Chacham. He was the son-in-law of one of the biggest poskim of the generation, Rav David Tzvi Orbach Hagadol. He was one of the big poskim in the Ukraine. And he was accomplished in halacha and everything, in geometry, in mathematics, in science. He was very fully knowledgeable. But when he came to Rabbi Nachman, he made himself empty. Other people came to Rabbi Nachman, but they came on the basis, but I'm also something. Rav Noson, he said, this tzaddik has what to give me. I'm going to empty myself out like I have nothing. It's like a person has a cup, okay? This cup now is full because the cup is only up to here. If I were to make this the same amount of water, but I made the cup from here up to the ceiling or up to the 10th floor, so it'll be insignificant now. So Rav Noson did, even though he was full, he made his cup, his Yiddish cup, he made his cup way bigger so he can receive from Rabbi Nachman, and he did. Rav Noson said to Rabbi Nachman, told Rav Noson, without you, not even a single page of Geniza would have been left from me. Rabbi Nachman said that, okay? So Rav Noson was the disciple that Rabbi Nachman put everything in, and he gave him the mission of making his teachings spread into what they are till today. So the whole Breslov movement and the Sfarim and the teachings and all these amazing things, they're mainly thanks to this Rav Noson. So of the things Rabbi Nachman gave to Rav Noson was to write also. He instructed him to write insights on his book, Likutey Moharan, based on the code of Jewish law, the Shulchan Aruch. He instructed him to take the actual 4 sections of the Shulchan Aruch, go through all the laws, and use his Likutey Moharan to develop insights on the spiritual meaning behind the halacha. Why tefillin like this? Why Shabbat like this? Why Yom Kippur? Why milk and meat? Why the laws of forbidden fats and dam? Tarat mishpacha, laws of damages in Choshen Mishpat, in Yoreh De'ah, and the laws of tefillin. Why? Okay, halacha says boom, 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 we have to know what to do, but what's the spiritual significance behind it? This is what Rabbi Nachman wanted Reb Noson to open up, and he did that. So he wrote a book, an 8-volume set called Likutey Halakhot. In Likutey Halakhot, we see Reb Noson's mind. Rabbi Nachman told Reb Noson, I'm going to open your mind to my book, and you're going to travel into it like in a palace, going from chamber to chamber, which is what they actually did. Anyone who was an honest, straightforward perspective, when they learn Likutey Halakhot, they will admit there's no other book in the world like this. There's no other sefer like this in the world. It's so amazing. From Likutey Halakhot, you see Rav Noson's intellect and how he's able to open up the practical dimension of Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Okay? Besides that, Rabbi Nachman, he didn't instruct. He hinted to Rav Noson, it would be so good if somebody can turn these lessons into prayers. If someone can re-express these ideas of my book, Likutey Moharan, in prayer format. He didn't instruct him to do it, but he hinted to him. And he said that such a feat, such an accomplishment, there's never been such sha'ashuim, such delight that has come before Hashem when when this feat of turning Torah lessons into prayers is done. It's something which is out of this world and has never been done. The only time this has been done in Jewish history is with the Chumash. The Gemara says, and the Midrash says, there's 5 books of the Chumash. On them, David HaMelech wrote the 5 books of Tehillim. Why there's 5 books of Tehillim? They're on the 5 books of the Chumash. What does that mean? all of King David's struggles and presentation to Hashem, save me from my enemies and all that, it's in order to fulfill the Torah. He's being attacked because he's the king of the Jews. So what? You're Jewish. So what? We don't want you to do what's in the Chumash. Okay? So King David's prayers is to fulfill what's written in the Chumash. The only other time in history we have such a thing is with Likutey Moharan and Likutey Tefillot. Reb Noson wrote these prayers on the Likutey Moharan. Okay? So now, besides that, we have a third dimension of Reb Noson. We have his prayers that he wrote that express his yearning in his heart. Any Jew opens the prayer, Reb Noson prayers, you find yourself immediately. It's everything you're going through based on a lesson in Likutey Moharan, and it's all your challenges, everything you're going through personally, in the light of the ideas that Rabbi Nachman's mentioning. And Reb Noson shows you how much you need them. How much you need them in your life, these ideas. So you have Likutey Halakhot, Reb Noson's intellect. You have in his prayers the heart, which is bringing up the heart and the mind. One thing is left. It's, okay, Reb Noson, how were you practically? How were you in actual life with your family and your kids and your wife and everything? We want to see. You can fine and dandy, nice, intellectual, bravo, your prayers, okay. I want to see the real you, Reb Noson. This is in Reb Noson's letters. Reb Noson, we have, not all, but many, many letters that he wrote in his lifetime. Most of them were written to his son. From the letters, you begin to see who Reb Noson really was and how down to earth he was in his relationship with people. You don't get to see his real essence because there's always a high-end part, but you get to see a practical dimension. So now, Rav Chaim Kramer, who wrote a book called, in English, Through Fire and Water, on Rav Noson's whole life. I really suggest, if you haven't read it, you should read it. You read it. How about it? Should you read it? I read it 15 times. It's a book you read over and over again because it's unbelievable. In the Hebrew version of the book, he wrote a Hebrew version, he did a lot of research and he was able to track and trace the dating of Reb Noson's discourses in the Likutey Halakhot using the letters, Reb Noson's letters. Because in the letters, he brings down once in a while ideas from the lessons and other hints. So we're able to track down letters that Reb Noson wrote while he was working on a specific lesson in Likutey Moharan, writing his discourse in Likutey Halakhot. And which means you see how Reb Noson is talking and expressing himself and talking about mundane ideas, and he's throwing in ideas from the lesson he's working on. But you see it on his most mundane level, okay? So what we're going to do, we're not just me, there's a whole group of people in the world together. We're working on one lesson on Likutey Moharan for 3 years now, lesson 24. The main theme of this lesson 24 is the power of simcha as the key for everything else in life. And then taking the simcha and channeling it into doing mitzvahs. When you do a mitzvah with simcha, as opposed to doing a mitzvah like Tisha B'Av, okay, time to make it, putting my tefillin, or doing the same tefillin with simcha, wow, I have this one to put on tefillin today, even though I'm late, I get to put my tefillin, okay? Having a happy attitude doing a mitzvah and having a Tisha B'Av attitude, it's a different world. It's a different world. And then in this lesson he says what you benefit and gain by doing mitzvah b'simcha, okay? In the Torah, it says clearly in Parashat Kitavo lists 98 curses that come upon the Jews. In the midst, it says, all this will come upon you. Why? Tachat asher lo avadat Hashem elokecha b'simcha uvtuv levav. All of these curses will come upon you because you did not serve Hashem with joy. It doesn't say because you didn't serve Hashem, period. No, because you didn't serve Hashem with joy. Because Hashem knows that if you serve Hashem out of you're forced to and I have to do it out of punishment and this, you just push gets the shove, the person will drop everything, which is what unfortunately has happened in history. And even people today, teenagers who get a Jewish education, a yeshiva education, why do they go off? Because they feel they're forced into it. It wasn't out of love. The Rebbe screamed at me, they beat me up and this, and they forced me and this and that. But the love was never coming. So because the love was never there and there was no simcha in doing it, so what do you expect? So, and then a person falls off, and then punishment happens, and Hashem says, you see, all this is because you didn't serve Hashem with simcha. Okay? The person said, well, it's not my fault. It's my educator's fault. Yes, on one hand. But on the other hand, it's your job to not be stupid and look into it. This can't be Judaism. This can't be what Hashem is so tough and exacting and punishing. This can't be the Torah. This can't be Hashem. There must be more to it. And that's the idea the Torah says. You didn't serve Hashem besimcha. So there's simcha in Judaism. I have to look for it. Right? That's what Rabbi Nachman comes to teach us. Mitzvah gedola, liot besimcha tamid. I remember when I was in the LiTerufah yeshiva, they would argue, where does it say it's a mitzvah gedola liot besimcha? I counted 613 mitzvahs. Not once does it say to be besimcha. So the answer is Parshat Kitavo. There's a mitzvah, 613 mitzvot, and there's a mitzvah gdola. It's a cup. What's a mitzvah gdola? What it says, Tachat asher lo avadet Hashem elokecha besimcha. Because you didn't serve Hashem besimcha, you get punished. Not because you didn't put on tefillin, because you didn't put on tefillin besimcha, because you didn't do Shabbos besimcha. Okay. This theme, Reb Noson so worked on it. We're going to see the letters that he wrote in the time that he wrote discourses on this lesson. Reb Noson wrote 3 discourses on lesson 24. Lesson Nefilat Apayim, discourse number 4. The laws of marriage, Ishut, husband and wife, discourse number 4. The laws of giving thanks, the blessings of Hoda'ah, discourse number 6. Of the 3, we only have letters written at the time that he wrote Ishut number 4. And Hoda'ah, number 6. We're going to start today, hopefully with the time that we have, if there's time, to go in the letters that he wrote in the year 1831. Really, it's 1830. In Hebrew, it's Taf Kuf Tzadik Aleph, which is the Hebrew year of 1831, but it was still in October. He was writing this discourse in October, November of 1830. The laws of Ishut. And he goes into Simcha. You're going to see from the letters, Rav Noson is living what he's writing about in the letters, in the discourse. We're not going to go into the discourse, that was already done in a different class. We're going to see Rav Noson on a practical level. Now, I don't know if you have a copy of the letters? Yeah. In English or Hebrew? Okay. In this year, Taf Kuf Tzadik Aleph, 1831, it was a very interesting year in Rav Noson's life. Number 1, he saw that the breslov movement will not continue if there is no place for them to gather for Rosh Hashanah. Until then, until those years, the Breslovs were renting accommodations for all the Hasidim who came to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. They were renting this place, renting that place, and then they reached the point where there's no more room. And the Breslovs says, Rav Noson, if you don't build a place, there'll be no future for us. So he started his campaign to raise money for the klois. Just one cute story on the side. The one who made the most noise to Rav Noson about this was a very, very poor Breslover, Rav Mendel of Ladizhin. Ladizhin was a village not far. And this Rav Mendel was a school teacher. And the school teachers back then, they made almost nothing. They were so poor. To be a tutor, it was like, I don't know if they didn't have like a building. They had a building with little rooms or whatever. And they had kids different ages together. It was not easy. It was a whole balagan. And they got paid very low. Rabbi Nachman was very against his followers being school teachers, because what maximum you get is maybe a nice Rosh Chodesh pie from the parents, and that's it. He said it's better to have a business where then there's a vessel for Hashem to send bracha. All of a sudden, some guy comes and buys all the merchandise and you have bracha. Okay, but you're a school teacher, it's fixed every month, a fixed salary. Rabbi Nachman was against fixed salaries. He was also against people living in small villages. He says because you don't allow room for the bracha to come down. Live in a big city where there's more opportunities, and have a type parnasa where there's room for bracha to come in spontaneous. Okay? So Rav Mendel was a school teacher, okay? And he died, I think that year, 1831, there was a cholera epidemic, and he passed away. We're going to go into the cholera. It's funny, cholera, it seems, is a Hebrew word because it only came out in the 1830s. And in Hebrew, they called it cholera. Choli, sickness, ra. A bad sickness, because many people died from the cholera epidemic in the Ukraine in the 1830. It lasted for about 2 months. At the time, right after Reb Noson finished this discourse, Ishut, boom, this cholera epidemic came, killing about 10,000 people, many of them Jews. Many Jews lost their lives also. And many Breslovers also lost their lives, unfortunately. So going back, this Rav Mendel Ladish, and he told Rav Noson, if you don't build a klois, then we have no future for Rabbi Nachman's Rosh Hashanah. So Rav Noson told him, okay, so you give the first donation. And he was like joking because he knew he was poor. Rav Mendel ran home. After speaking to Rav Noson, he went back to his home. in Ladijin. He came back with 2 rubles. Reb Noson says, what? You have no money. He says, take it. He said, no, I'm not going to take it. And he started crying. He said, I'm not going to leave it until you take it. I want to have a part of this mitzvah. Reb Noson felt so bad. He's giving his whole income from his family to build the klois, to build a shul for the breslov gathering. Reb Noson took it. And then when he went to the rich supporters in the eastern Ukraine, there were villages called Kremenchug, Cherin, Medvedevka. In Cherin were the main rich Breslovers. He said to them, Reb Mendel gave me his whole money, everything he had, 2 rubles, you match it. They felt so bad, they gave a lot of money. So then Reb Noson says, we have to ask ourselves, what built the klois? Was it the money of the rich or the yearning of the poor? We have to say it was the yearning of the poor, okay? So in this year, because of Reb Mendel, especially, Reb Noson went on his campaign to start raising funds to build the klois, which he eventually did. It was a big task. For all the Breslovers, the majority of them were poor. Okay, they're all spread out. They weren't like other Hasidic dynasties where there's like a Rebbe and there's a Gabbai and everyone has to give their monthly say. Breslov, Rabbi Nachman passed away. Where Reb Noson was running away from being a Rebbe. He didn't want that. He saw himself as the student of Rabbi Nachman. That's it. My mission here is to be a student of Rabbi. Once someone bought Reb Noson a shtreimel and he forced him to wear it. Back then, only Rebbes wore shtreimels. Okay, in the Ukraine. Once Reb Noson went to relieve himself to the washroom, he left the shtreimel outside. When he came back, somebody stole it. He was so happy. He got rid of the shtreimel. He didn't want the shtreimel. But he ran away from being a Rebbe. And that's why there was such envy and jealousy of the Breslover Hasidim. You don't have a living Rebbe, and yet you guys are growing? That was the whole thing. That was the whole, one of the reasons that there was such opposition. We have a Rebbe, we have a Rebbe. Yes, you have a Rebbe, but the Hasidim are, whatever. Here, there's no living Rebbe, and the Hasidim are people who are, what they call in terminology of yeshiva, mevakshim. They're mevakesh. They're really looking. People who are looking for Hashem, they eventually do come to Breslov. Okay, it's an address. Almost anyone who is a sincere Oved Hashem, he runs across in his lifetime Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Some stay, some look elsewhere, okay? But Breslov is a stop for almost everyone who's looking sincerely, okay? So, 1830, late Reb Noson started his campaign for the klois. Okay, also, we're going to see that there's a wedding coming up. There was a big wedding of who? Of a guy named Moshe Chenkes. Moshe Chenkes was a very wealthy guy. He had government contracts for repairing the roads. And you know the Ukraine, how the roads are terrible. And they're always, every year, because it's winter, the snow and the ice destroys the roads. So every summer you have to redo the roads. That's how it is in Canada, by the way. And in the Ukraine also, they're always fixing the roads in the summer. Fixing the roads, okay? So he had government contracts of fixing the roads, which is a lot of money. And he also owned a wheat mill, a big wheat mill, which made wheat flour for the whole area. He was a very wealthy guy. In the beginning, he was very poor. He became wealthy because of a bracha Rabbi Nachman gave to him. Okay? And he became wealthy, but he didn't have kids. And Rabbi Nachman told him before he passed away, so he told him in his life, he said, the reason why you're not having kids is because you had a business partner who stole money from you. And when you steal money from a person, it's like you steal their children, chas v'shalom. So he told him, if you want, before he passed away, he told Reb Noson to tell Moshe Chenkes, tell him that if he wants to have kids, he should divorce his wife and remarry and he'll have kids. He refused to listen to that for a few years, but years were going by, no kids, and then Reb Noson says, I swear to you, like I have he spoke to him when he had his tefillin on, Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. He said, I swear to you, just like I have my tefillin on my head right now, that Rabbi Nachman told me to tell you that if you divorce, you'll have kids. Then he took it seriously. He spoke to his wife because he didn't have any kids, and they had all this money and they had a mansion, but no kinderlich. What's going on? What's it? So they both agreed, but she agreed on condition that she get half of his wealth, which was a lot, and even half is still a lot. He agreed, they divorced, she took half of the money, and who did she remarry? She ended up remarrying the guy who stole the money in the first place. So it was fulfilled. Rabbi Nachman mentions, it's a Gemara. Rabbi Nachman has a lesson on this, lesson 68 and 69. That when a person steals money from another person, it's like they steal their children and even sometimes their wife. And in his case, it came true totally. That in the end, his ex-business partner ended up remarrying his wife. Okay? He remarried. The sister, Elka, her name was, of the Tomoshpil Rav. Tomoshpil, it's funny, it's the same letters as Plishtim. Tomoshpil was a little shtetl in Ukraine. And the Tomoshpil Rav and his wife, they were students of the Savrana Rebbe. The Savrana Rebbe began to develop his hatred and envy towards Rav Noson. Hatred also because he became a widower. He lost his wife. And they were suggesting as a possible shidduch, Rabbi Nachman's eldest daughter, Odel. Odel, Rabbi Nachman's daughter. Not to get mixed up with Odel, the daughter of the Baal Shem Tov. Rabbi Nachman's oldest daughter, Odel, she also lost her husband. And they were suggesting maybe marry the Savrana Rebbe. So she said, I don't do anything what Rav Noson. In my house, in my father's house, it was always Noson, whatever Rav Noson says. They asked Rav Noson, what he thinks about the potential shidduch. He says it's not good. Why? If he marries the daughter of Rabbi Nachman, and the Savrana was a giant in halacha, super duper giant in halacha. Rav Noson said about him, he's the only person in this generation that I can discuss the concept of soda ibur. Soda ibur is a very complex halachic topic of how you can make a leap year, how to calculate when is a year. We have it said. The rabbis from the Gemara said it. But the calculation on figuring it out is so complex that they say maybe one or two people in every generation know. It's called soda ibur, it sounds like a Kabbalah, but it's no. It's a halachic complex situation of figuring out how to calculate the leap year. It's said now. The rabbi said it from the Gemara. We have it said until Mashiach comes. Okay, but how to make the calculation is super complex. So Rav Noson said he's the only one in this generation I can speak about it. Rav Noson knew about it, and he said he knew about it. That's how big these people were. Okay, so he was scared that if he marries the daughter of Rabbi Nachman, that he might think he's the continuity of Rabbi Nachman, because he was a big guy. Rabbi Nachman said once about the Savrana Rebbe, I see a soul in the Ukraine. And I wanted to bring him close. And that was the Savrana. He tried to bring the Savrana close, but he refused. For whatever reason, because already Rabbi Nachman's time, there was a bit of opposition due to the Shpola Zaydi. Shpola Zaydi, one of the last surviving students of Baal Shem Tov, started a whole opposition against Rabbi Nachman based on a slander. But the Gemara says, the Midrash says in Kohelet Rabbah, that there's a brit kruta, there's a covenant made that slander is accepted, even when it's false. Brit, even the Chafetz Chaim brings this many times, this midrash from Kohelet Rabbah, brit kruta l'sfatayim, that when slander is said, even if it's said and it's not true, it gets accepted. That's how bad it is. That's how dangerous it is. So because of the slander spoken against Rabbi Nachman in his time, he had his reservations to come close to Rabbi Nachman, and he said, Chaval. He said to him, Rabbi Nachman said to the Savrana Rebbe, if you come to me, I said, I have a nosele, and if you come to me, I'll make out of you even a greater chidush than my nosen, okay? Fine. So it didn't happen. So when Rav Noson, many years later, 1830s, late 1827, when this shidduch was suggested, Rav Noson turned it down. And because he turned it down, Oda said, if Rav Noson turned it down, then forget it. I'm not doing it. So he had a type of hatred, an envy. He was hurt, the Savrana Rebbe. Okay? And it's not known that he remarried. It sounds like he didn't remarry. And Rav Noson says that's one of the reasons he became the main opposition to Rav Noson and the breslov movement, is because he didn't remarry. Okay? Hear that? So, the Tomoshpil Rav, his sister Elki, is the one who married Moshe Chenkis. And the Tomoshpil Rav, being a student of Savrana, also had reservations against Rav Noson and the breslov movement. So when the wedding, so Moshe Chenkis, he got married many years earlier. And by 1830, his daughter, what was her name? I forgot her name, sorry. She married the grandson of Rabbi Nachman, Avram Dov. Avram Dov was the son of Odel. So in the end, he felt he had the last laugh. Why? In Rabbi Nachman's lifetime, Moshe Chenkis, like I said, he was a very close follower of Rabbi Nachman and a supporter. He became wealthy, and Moshe Chenkis once tried to serve coffee for Rabbi Nachman, and it spilled. And when it spilled, Rabbi Nachman told Moshe Chenkis, we will never be mechutanim. Okay. So he was shocked when he heard that. But now, in 1830, his daughter, Miriam Reitzeh, that was her name, Miriam Reitzeh, she was extremely beautiful. She was born as a result of Rabbi Nachman's blessing. Rabbi Nachman told Moshe Chenkes through Reb Noson, divorce, remarry, and you have children. So Moshe Chenkes divorced, remarried, Elki, the sister of Tomash Berav, and he had a daughter and a son. Daughter Miriam Reitze and a younger son. Okay, so this Miriam Reitze, by 1830, she was like around 15 years old. She got engaged and married to Avram Dov. So he felt Avram Dov was who? The grandson of Rabbi Nachman. So he felt he had the last laugh. Rabbi Nachman said we'll never be mechutanim, and look what happened. But unfortunately, or fortunately, a year and a half later, he divorced because he found her flirting with other young, because she was very pretty, and the Savaner young men just wanted to talk around her in order to speak to her because she was so pretty, she was so beautiful. Okay, so he had suspicions, he found evidence, and he immediately divorced her. And he was so broken, Moshe Chenkes, when the divorce took place, he demanded back the talis that he gave as the gift for the chasana. He demanded back the talis from Avram Dov. And Moshe Chenkes' business partners, they said to him, you went too far. Not only did you lose such a precious gem, because Avram Dov, he was a Talmid Chacham, he was a tzaddik, and he was also a businessman. He was everything you would want in a son-in-law. Talmid Chacham, okay, a tzaddik, good midot, and he knew how to conduct business. He became wealthy also, Avram Dov, in the end, okay? He owned fields of lumber. He sold wood, okay, made tons of money. So they told him, you went too far. You not only did the divorce, but you also demand back the talis, because he was so upset. So that's how the hatred started, okay? Rav Noson's first letter on Ishut Dalit was written in the time of the wedding. At the wedding, when Moshe Chenkes' daughter married Avram Dov, so the Tomash Rav was there for his wife. At the wedding, which took place in a village called Sherovitz. We're okay, right? We're okay with time? We're 5 minutes? Sherovitz, like you have Mansin, you have suburban Mansin, they're really wealthy people that live in the suburbs, right? So Sherovitz was a wealthy suburb of the city Breslov. There's Breslov, which was like poor people, a shtetl and everything. Sherovitz was an outside village outside of Breslov where the wealthy Jews lived. Moshe Chenkes lived there. The chasana was there, okay? Because that's the minhag. The minhag is you do the chasana where the kala is from. That's the normal custom, right? Where the kala is from, that's where you do the chasana. So she was in Sherovitz. They did the chasana in Sherovitz, a small village, and he made a big fancy schmancy wedding you can imagine. At the wedding came his brother-in-law, the Tomash Rav. Again, Tomash Plishtim. You'll see why I make fun of him. Tomash Rav and his wife. And at the wedding, they couldn't hold themselves back. In front of everybody, they were insulting non-stop, embarrassing Reb Noson. It was such an embarrassment at a wedding. The wedding of Moshe Chenkes, be quiet with some respect. He felt he couldn't hold back. This is, about Reb Noson and the Breslovers, him and especially his wife. They both started to mamash put down Reb Noson. And one Breslover chassid couldn't hold himself. He even slapped her. He slapped the Tomash Rav's wife to shut up. Okay? We're going to see Reb Noson's first letter that he wrote during this week of the Chasana, and he went into this lesson 24, of how you have to face besimcha no matter what. And you have to be besimcha even if it's difficult to work on it, okay? Reb Noson, before this lesson, Likutey Moharan lesson 24, we see from his discourses, he was working on another deep lesson 22, on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Lesson 22 is one of the deepest lessons in the Likutey Moharan. It's like a different ballgame. One of the topics there is the idea how when a Jew does Torah study and prayer, it's like Naaseh v'nishma. Naaseh is Torah study. Nishma is I want to hear the next lesson, the next level of Torah. The only way to get to that is through davening. If you just learn, you think just learning will get you to a higher level, you're wrong. The way that the Torah opens up itself to you is it has to be coupled with davening. Davening, learning. If it's just learning, and even when you're davening, you're learning, forget it. The person's stuck on the first level his whole life. The secret for the Torah to open itself up to a person is a person has to daven about what he's learning. So that's nishma. Rabbi Nachman interprets, and he says this is the key for simcha. This Naaseh v'nishma brings simcha. And Rav Noson was working on that discourse, and from that he went to this lesson 24. Okay, and then after Rav Noson finished this discourse, came along the cholera epidemic that I spoke about, which was a big makkah. And Rav Noson left lesson 24 and went into another lesson, 65, which goes into how to cope with suffering. Because the suffering was so bad. Reb Noson had guests coming over, and they were dying in his house. So the misnagdim, they were saying, look, anybody who comes into contact with Reb Noson, he dies. Look, all the guests he had, he died. He said, Reb Noson, look what we're going through. Look what bushot, much embarrassment, and how degrading we are. And people are, because of this degradation, people don't even open the books. If they would just open this farm, they would see what a life-changing thing is Rabbi Nachman and his teachings. And now, because of the stupid opposition, they lost out something that could have changed their whole lives. And maybe the next opportunity will come in another reincarnation, possibly. That's how bad it was, okay? So this is Reb Noson's scenario. I think we'll start the first letter in the next class, B'ezrat Hashem. This was the intro, giving us the perspective of Reb Noson. Likutey Moharan, Likutey Halakhot, Likutey Tefillot, the letters, okay? And why the letter? When you see the letter, you see how much power in the letters. They're called in Hebrew, what are they called? Alim, LiTerufah. Leaves of healing. That's the name given to Reb Noson's letters. Why? Because mamash, when you begin to read these letters, you mamash feel this is a healing. I needed to hear that. And it's on a practical level. It's him writing to his side. It's not like, okay, huji buji and intellectual Torah concepts and my davening. It's like the real deal. You can't get more real than the person's letter and how he writes to another person, A to B, and expressing what's in their heart, and on a real level. Like, not just to keep you hanging, but what to do on a practical level. So you see, the more you see the letters, the more you begin to see how it's mamash healing. So B'ezrat Hashem, this is the opening class. Here at Sun next week we'll have more people. And I think this class is very fitting for ladies more than men because it's on such a practical level. B'ezrat Hashem, it'll open up B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, thank you for joining.